All right. So today we're joined by my friend, Mr. John Dochety. How are you, John?
Doing great, Ralph. Thanks for having me on again 15 years later.
Yeah, yeah. And you look 15 years younger, as we
So
were
you
talking.
look, I
You were
told you
saying
earlier, you look
earlier.
great too.
Yes.
It's like a high
If I
school
was-
reunion. I mean, most high school
yes,
reunions don't go
yes.
to, you don't attend 15-year high school reunions. We were
Yeah.
old then.
So yeah, exactly. So you can't go anywhere, but it can't get any worse. Is basically it.
No,
But so you since that last rendezvous 15 years ago, there have been actually another generation of people. One of the kids wrote me on Instagram. He said, man, my father was telling me about this Gotham golf blog stuff. Man, I thought it was so cool. I said, really? So it sounded more like ancient history as the kid is recounting it to me. He's a good player too. I was looking
oh
at
my
his stats.
goodness.
It's like a high school stud. But anyway,
Well, you got the coolest name for the podcast. I mean, you can't beat
yeah,
Gotham Golf Blog. It's awesome.
yeah. Thank you. So why don't we start, I guess, by you giving us a little background about yourself, how you started in golf, how do you get to where you are now?
I grew up in Southern California. I'm pretty much the same age as Tiger, so I got to watch his greatness in junior golf and played competitively as a kid and went to Glendora High School in a suburb of Los Angeles and took lessons from a guy named Tom Sargent who is just amazing and I'd say was the poster child for like the PGA of America. If you could have a logo of a PGA professional, it would be Tom Sargent. He was at Yorba Linda Country Club in Mesa Verde. I went and worked with him at both places. But he was a big role model of mine. So I looked up to him. I looked up to his stature, and I said, I want to do that. I want to be a golf pro. I want to teach. I want to be like Tom. And so I went to Mississippi State out of high school and majored in professional golf management. Got my PGA really young. Got a job at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta, and under Chad Parker, who is still there after all these years, is now the general manager. CEO of Eastlake, and Dave Purdy was there and is still there to this day. It's amazing that they just take care of their staff so much that people just don't leave. And it's such a great place to work under Tom Cousins and the foundation. But anyways, out of that job, I worked there 4 years and I was 26 years old. And I launched into a head pro job in Tullahoma, Tennessee at a super duper young age, looking back now, mainly because of the Eastlake on my resume. But a big part of it was the chef at Eastlake had moved to Tullahoma, Tennessee, and had opened his own restaurant. So he called my director of golf and said, "One of your assistants need to apply for this job because it's a hidden jewel. You own the carts, the range, the shop. It's an old school. Those jobs just don't exist much. Most country clubs just pay you a salary. So it was a nice opportunity for my young family to move up there." And I was there for 13 years. And then after Lakewood, I resigned from being a golf pro and got my master's in education and became teaching golf full time. And then I got a job at then Martin Methodist College as the men's and women's golf coach. And then that university got purchased by the University of Tennessee, which was like a lottery ticket. They bought our college out in 21. I remained as the coach and have been there since, teaching the men's and women's golf program there. So it's only 30 minutes from my house. So it just worked fantastic to have it that close and a wonderful opportunity. So I teach golf remotely, mostly on Zoom, on Skillest. And then I work with the kids during the day, Monday through Friday, and then travel with them about 40 nights a year. We're on the road, but 12 events a year, fall and spring semester. So it's a nice life. I got 2 young kids. I started over. I'm 48 years old. I got a 1.5-year-old boy and a 4-week-old son, 2 rooms over with my wife. So I have a 23-year-old daughter and then 2 young boys. So they're keeping me young, and I still got a passion for golf, and I call myself a student of the game and student of study in the golf swing. So every day I feel like I'm learning something.
That's awesome. Now, how was that transition from SoCal to the Deep South?
Well, I mean, that first night I got to, they were spitting in jars, and I was like, well, I go, what are you guys doing? I'm like, they're like, here. They threw me a can of this junk, and they said, put it in your lip, and I put it in my lip, and I quit dipping 20 years later. So I turned into a Southerner pretty quick. Started chewing tobacco, drinking Miller Lights, joined a fraternity, and fit right in with those country boys.
There you go.
And had a great time. I mean, it was different. Going from L.A., the Bermuda greens, the Bermuda grass, um, being the ball seemed like it didn't travel as far in Mississippi. It was the turf was weird, so it was my first time out of L.A. really in a long time to go play Southern golf. So when I get these kids and I recruit them from international, from Spain, Germany, they come over here. I totally can relate to their adjustment period, getting used to our golf courses. And then I see the effect it has when our kids go up to Kentucky and play bent grass. It's
Right.
real interesting that horses for courses, but you get used to a certain turf and a ball flight. You go somewhere else and it whacks you out, and messes you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big wake up call. But Ralph, I never left, so I've been here, since I got in 1995. I've never left the Southeast
it's home now, right?
home.
And you like it. So this is a Division I college. You're
No, this is still NAIA, which I tell people NAIA typically is comprised of small Christian universities, and we were a Christian university at Martin Methodist. And when UT bought them out in 21, they just, because our size is around 1,200 students, they didn't want to make that jump to NCAA, so we're still NAIA. So we're not part of the NCAA. And talk in our AD, our athletic director, we don't see that happening until enrollment gets much bigger, but it is getting bigger. So the university is growing because they cut the cost from $35,000 a year to $10,000 a year, and then with it being a state school, kids get these lottery scholarships, and so you can pretty much come to these state schools for really cheap. So that being said, the enrollment for people just coming to go to a university to study is going to increase. Where most of these small private universities in the United States survive because of athletics. So most of these small Christian universities, half of the population play some sport. And the growth will come when you get kids attend your university that are there for just academics. And that will happen at our place soon. It's happening right now. So that then when that happens, they'll probably want to make the move to NCAA once the numbers get right and they can have the money to build the proper facilities.
right. And so you you were heavily influenced by the gentleman in California, Mr. Sargent, and so now let's talk about your teaching progress. What's your teaching history? Who's influenced your methodologies and your let's go from the beginning.
I mean, I was teaching at East Lake, so I loved it. I was teaching at East Lake, no background. The PGA back then didn't prep you for teaching. That was not a forte in the education. You had to go out on your own and do it. And so at East Lake, I started teaching with pretty much only pedigree being my own golf experience. And I was teaching, at a very prominent country club, golf club. And I was teaching big people, famous people came in, and I'd work with them. So I really got some great experience starting out there. But then when I got to Lakewood, one of my members' grandsons was working with Mark Blackburn, who everybody knows his name now. But back then, nobody knew it. He was in Huntsville at Lake Gunnersville, and teaching out of a little building. And the guy's grandson was taking lessons, so he wanted me to sit on a stool and shadow him, so that when his grandson was back at the club, I could, be a second eye for him, and help him while he was at home. And through 4 or 5 of those visits of me going down, Mark and I got to be friends. Mark's a character. He has a big British thick accent, and he's hilarious. And we got to be friends, and he's like, man, you got to go do this, that, and see this person and that person, and start getting educated in golf instruction. And that included golf machine. At the time, he was big into that. So I went down with them and a summit with Brian Manzella and Lynn Blake and Chuck Evans. And I got to be really good friends with Chuck and Lynn. And then from that, did all sorts of stuff with the golf machine. And then Mark's like, now with this golf machine background, you got to go see Mac O'Grady. And then Mark was with Mac and working with Robert Carlson. So it was Robert Carlson on the European Tour, some PGA Tour, Mark and Mac. And Mark gave me his contact. I sent, I don't know, 7 emails to Mac O'Grady, nothing responded. I'm just throwing a number out there. It was a lot. Never responded to me. And then all of a sudden I got a call at midnight. I'm in Tennessee. He's in Palm Springs from a number I didn't recognize on an old Nokia cell phone. And he goes, is this John Dochety? And I'm like, yeah, that's what, yes, sir. And he goes, this is Mac O'Grady. I'm sitting here at my computer looking at all your emails. What do you want? And I said, well, I'd love to come train under you. And he said this, he told me what I had to do to set up a golf school. I had to recruit a certain number of people. The cost was $2,500 for 3 days. So through my PGM connections, I was able to create a base of clientele to come in for these MAC schools. So it's funny, most of the people I brought in to those MAC schools are now in the top 100 Golf Digest list. TJ Yeaton, just north of me at Bellmead Country Clubs, taken off. Just a whole host of these guys have been successful that have ran through those MAC schools with me. And it's fun to watch their career blossom and take off. But anyways, to make a long story short, I made it my goal, Mark, 30 days or a month or two after I finally got in to see Mac and set up my school. Mark got kicked out. So Mark got kicked out because Robert Carlson wouldn't do X, Y, or Z that Mac wanted him to do. So I got in just in the nick of time, and it was real touch and go because Mac associated me with Mark Blackburn. So it was a little touch and go there for a while, but I was able to fill those schools, once or twice a year, and really be a productive asset to him. And I felt like Mac and I became friends. I think he gives that impression to everyone that he's with. I think Mac, when you're with him, is a kind man and a good man. And it was enjoyable and fun. And I did it for 5 years, which I always say it had to be one of the longest runs. I know probably Mike Bennett and Andy Plummer might have got me beat there by a year or two, but I enjoyed it. And we alternated between Tennessee National and Knoxville, and then reopened our golf club in Orlando doing golf schools. And it had a good thing going. And then one night after a school, I guess I'd back it up. I had a client in Virginia who attended most of my schools, very wealthy client. Couldn't make it at the last second. Business came up. And so he wired me to my checking $2,500 and said, you cut a check to Mac, give it to Mac, and tell him, here's my money for missing. I apologize. So I always gave Mac a stack of checks at the end of every school, handed it to him on his drop off at the airport, and that was it. And then that night I got a call late again at midnight, and he goes, Dochety, he goes, I'm looking at these checks. Why are one of these checks from you? He goes, why did you cut me a check for $2,500? Because I never paid. I actually got paid by Mac. So Mac actually paid me $500 a person for each school attended, which helped cover my hotel, my airfare, being away from work, time off. So, it wasn't a big money maker, but it was enough to kind of balance things out. So me sending him a check for $2,500 flipped him out. And I told him the story about this rich client. Whether he was super sleepy, jet lagged, whatever, he was, Bob, but he got ticked off and said, he goes, Tom was supposed to be there for a week. Well, if you're there for 7 days, it's $3,000 and not $2,500. He goes, Tom was supposed to be there for a week. And I said, no, of course I argued with him, no, just 3 days. And I said, he just wants you to have the money. Of course, he said, that's not how it worked. He goes, that he should have sent me this check and then have a credit. He could come to the next 7-day school. Anyways, he lost his school, hung up on me, and make a long story as short as I can, that was the end of the road. So 5 years. And to be honest with you, that was 2012. So the banking crisis happened in 2008. I always tell people the rich people didn't really have effects to that until 2011 and 12. It started affecting their pocketbook finally. So my school started dwindling a lot in 2012. I was fighting to get 3 guys, 4 guys, where before it was 12 people in a school. So you could tell the pocketbooks of that banking collapse started to really affect people about that time. So I think all the schools were starting to suffer, and he was probably just in a bad place, as that was a big, bell cow for him. But anyways, that's my story with Mac. So you asked you who I worked with. It was a lot of golf machine, MORAD-based education. And then I took several TPI classes. Of course, that came from Mark as well. Mark is big in the TPI thing. And I felt like that was just like Mac was talking about. Mac must have read encyclopedias on anatomy and the body. He was basically a biomechanist. And so everything I read in TPI just certified what Mac said. But TPI was great. It gave a lot of good insight into people, why they can't make the motion, physical limitations, how to screen for them. And so I'd say those three main pillars of TPI, MORAD, and the golf machine have been influenced to me. But then again, I mean, now when YouTube took off and Instagram, just like you and everyone else, we're watching stuff from John Tattersall to, who name it, Mike Adams. I mean, you're seeing information and it's out there and it's accessible. And so if you've got a good eye and you've been around it like you and I have, you can really read between the lines on what they're saying and get some really good insight from ground forces to 3D. So much of that stuff so much more easy to understand than it was, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. So, I remember Blackburn, and TJ Eaton. You introduced me to him at the PGA show.
Have you had him on the blog yet?
No, I haven't seen him since. I tried to reach out to him a couple of times, but then, the whole thing, I wound up getting the YouTube death penalty right after that whole thing. But yeah, if you can get us in contact, I'd love to have him.
Yeah, I'll send you a cell. He just won Teacher of the Year in Tennessee, so he might have the big head. But he needs to get on here. He's
funny. I like him.
He is. He's a character.
And there was another gentleman you introduced me to, a Morad guy, back when it was a secret. It was
George Hunt.
George Hunt.
Is
he in?
I haven't heard from George.
He on the West Coast?
Yeah, Mac loved George. I believe George was Mac's favorite. George was older, and I would say he was 10 to 15 years older than me. Would be my guess back then. But yeah, I don't know. I've not heard from George Hunt. George Hunt is the only person in the history of MORAD that Mac let use his logo on his website. George Hunt used the MORAD official logo approved by Mac, which was just unheard of. So that was, we were all jealous of that. George did a great job with Mac, but like all of us, got kicked out. So. And I would say within a year of me and TJ. So I got kicked out. 30 months later, TJ got kicked out. It happened really quick in that 2012-13 range, and then he disappeared. He kind of resurfaced just in the last couple of years. He'd been in Japan forever. He's born in 52, so he's 73 years old-ish, but still swinging. I had a buddy of mine take a video of him at some club in Southern California. Swing still looked good. White hair, of course, but still looking good. I know he's still doing golf schools because I got clients that are going to him. So he's still cooking.
Wow. Yeah, I see some guys in Canada and still doing it more. I think George, a friend of mine, went to take lessons with George Hunt, MORAD.
Okay.
Guy named Rios out west, and I
now
just
you will
remembered
buy the book from George. I mean, like you're getting it from Mac. If you get a lesson from me, you're not going to get. You're going to probably see a lot more influence from a lot more other sources. But George will give you the authentic. You will feel what it's like to be in a golf school with George. 100% information from Mac, very spot on. I mean, he took notes and videos. He's probably got more school videos and notes than anyone on this planet. He was very meticulous, George.
Yeah,
impressive.
He's kind of by the book guy. And right now you're focusing on your team, obviously, and how are they doing?
They're doing good. I got a girl that's won 4 times, and she's a junior. She just won last tournament, and we're working on her swing mechanics, and it's looking clean. And she's shooting, her scoring average is around even to a little under, and she's got a good chance to win conference and very good chance to go to the national championship in Michigan at Eagle Crest. So, we got her. I got on the guys' side, the guys won 4 in a row in the fall and then must have took up bowling over Christmas because they came out and finished second to last in the first tournament in the spring. So they're, they had to get to work, and I was not very happy. I wasn't a happy coach on the bus ride back. So Well, I made them all requalify. Normally, I just make a couple requalify, but they all felt the pain when they came back. But they have the talent. They just need to get focused. And it's tough in Tennessee. We're just north enough to where our winters are winter, and we don't get on the course, and it's snowy, cold, 30s, and icy, and we're not playing golf. They're playing simulator golf. So getting on, making that divot and feeling low point and controlling the chips and the pitches and irons when it's wet and nasty, and it can, I understand where they're coming from. Where we did play a bunch of schools that were southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, that have been golfing all winter and just got smoked. But yeah, so we'll see. We're going back. We're going back Tuesday. I leave Tuesday to go to RTJ Grand National, beautiful golf course in Auburn, Alabama. We leave to go down there Tuesday for a 3-day tournament.
I mean, how many golf courses is at Robert Trent Jones Trail?
I would get the number wrong, but I'm going to say 10 to 12. It's a lot.
They're
all and they're all gotten better, and they're all in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, it's unbelievable. I think COVID, the money came in from COVID or whatever, the surge of golf or whatever it is, but they're putting money back into their golf courses, and they're stunning.
Yeah, there's two. I'm Dominican Republic now. I think I mentioned.
You're in the Dominican Republic?
Yes, that's where this is where I winterize.
Oh my goodness!
So there's two Robert Trent Jones courses here. There's Playa Dorada and Playa Grande. And Playa Grande is owned by Discovery Land now. Okay. Playa Grande was Robert Trent Jones' last design, I believe. And that's like the most exclusive golf course on the planet. Yesterday I was actually at Casa de Campo with Teeth of the Dog with it's getting renovated, but that's Pete Dye. So there's quite a bit of golf out here now developing,
that Discovery Properties has a course just north of me called the Troubadour. And two of our players are members, Jacob and Tyler Wilson. And you go in there, and when you pull in the gate, you got armed guards with assault rifles checking you out, your security clearance. You go in, there's drones. When you're driving around the neighborhood, there's drones. And then when you finally get to the golf course, which is it's like Disney World for golfers, they got a Jumbotron playing Sports Center, blasting country music on the radio. No one's in golf attire. You got guys with no shirt on and shorts that are fresh off the treadmill hitting balls. You got comfort stations on both nines where it's unlimited food, alcohol, snacks, ice cream machines. And then every couple, 3 holes, there's a little cooler in the ground with liquor. Or there's coolers in trees and birdhouses. I mean, it's the most. I mean, you got people that are members there that are, Morgan Wallen, famous country star. Justin Thomas is a member there on the PGA Tour. JB Holmes. It's just a who's who. Matter of fact, I mean, those guys have so many connections. Those two boys. I got a check in the mail for our golf team from a Detroit Lions wide receiver that's a member there. So I mean, it's crazy. But make your point on Discovery Properties, which is what you just said is there in Dominican. It's second to none. Those guys do not hold back a cent on the experience.
It's like
they're popping up all over.
There's a market for it. There is a niche market for that level of luxury. You understand it? I mean, over here you got Ricky Fowler. You have the guy who just resigned, President of Seminole. That just resigned from the PGA Tour board because of LIV. He's a member there. He's the president of Seminole.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Michael Jordan comes down here and so you can come in and go there. I think they have a giant limo, a helicopter, for small jets to pick you up at different airports, wherever you land in the country. You know what I mean? So it's
first class.
Yeah, first class. And I actually played that golf course before they got a hold of it. And it was like Pebble Beach. Just naturally, the golf course is going to be defined by the lay of the land, by the land they give you, right? This thing has bluffs and cliffs and the Caribbean and the Atlantic Ocean and turquoise blue. It's beautiful. So, it didn't take much to make something at that level. You know what I mean?
I like your Ben Hogan pictures behind you.
Yeah, those are the 53 irons.
Those are beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah,
pictures.
These are the commemorative 53 when he won the Grand Triple Crown.
The Hogan Personals.
Yeah, those are the 53, the exact same replicas of his 53, the one he won the Triple Crown.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of like so. So right now, if somebody wanted to work with you, your only option is remote, right? Because you're coaching the.
No, I got 8 acres right here in my. I wish maybe I'll pan the camera around to the front yard, but I have a golf hole. I built a golf hole in my front yard with a bunker
Okay.
and tee box. So I have clients that have come in from China. They've flown into Huntsville International Airport from China and have come right here to my front. I walked out my front door and met them on their rental car. So I get people that come here in person that prefer the hands-on. But yeah, I'd say most of it is Zoom or Skillest analysis or live sessions on Zoom. And then I have a website, dochetygolf.com, that has I have my cell phone number on there. So I mean, it's just give me a text or call. If I can't answer, I'll call you back. Yeah, I'd love to work with you. I do. I'm open for lessons, so let me know if
Okay.
somebody'd like to hop in there and battle it out. It's a process. No one's going to get. I mean, there's a certain level player like PGA Tour player that are probably a swing thought away from back to perfection. But most people, you have to be committed to get involved into a process of learning, and it's not going to happen in one or two Zooms or a Skillest lesson. It's a process. It's there's a lot that goes into it, and I think successful people understand that process. That's probably why they said most CEOs have played athletics at the collegiate level. I think they understand the rigor and the work ethic and the attention to detail and the amount of time it takes to be really good at something. And it's not going to be a quick fix from somebody that plays once a week and doesn't work on what you tell them. There's no way. So, I mean, your swing is going to be, I bet Ralph's golf swing when he was 18 looks pretty similar to Ralph's golf swing now. If you filmed it, you'd probably be like, there's the signature is there. We all have a signature to our swing. It's going to be our body shape, our rhythm, our flexibility, our range of motion, our general makeup. And so making changes is going to be to change that motor pattern that may be unathletic or not mechanically sound or sequence being off. It's going to take some work to put new habits on top of those old habits, because none of us wake up. But I'm not saying none of us. Tiger Woods on the Tonight Show looked pretty good swinging the club at like 3 years old. So some of us walk out of the crib with a natural, athletic move, but very few of us. But I do think it's possible. I've seen tons of examples of people that are not athletes really look good and get a swing that is beautiful. So the dream can come true, but it takes a work ethic. It takes a commitment to the teacher. It takes time. And my most successful students have been with me the longest. So it's not been the one that meets with me once and then gets off. Those people that surf around like that probably, are pretty frustrated.
That's it's the commitment. I mean, I'm trying to get myself to commit to a physical fitness program, and it's hard. I mean, it's easier not to do it, right? It's easier not to do it and expect the results, right? So I have a question. Now, you've been through the world of TPI and all the new sports sciences. I'm not sure if Mac was using launch monitors or pressure plates or any of that stuff. I have a collection of at least 20, maybe 30 videos of Mac lessons. How far off is the MORAD program from what like is out there now? Scientific research and the DPIs, the ball flight.
It's not much. It's 95% of what he said applies today as it did then. And the only 5%, I always say 5% is not, because he'd ramble on about a bunch of crazy stuff occasionally. But I mean, the stuff he talked about, the ground forces, getting into that right heel or that right foot as early as possible and putting a ton of pressure in that right foot early. You see it with his setup. I mean, he sets up more to the right than any player that has played professionally. His center at setup is already over to the right. Most guys start center, some or left, and then have to move into the right. He already set up to the right and was already in that position right to set up so that he didn't have to make a big move over to the right and disrupt the takeaway. So he had all this mapped out. He knew what he wanted with these forces and just sort of cleaned up and understood what it took to, uh, trim off the fat and and end up with a pretty lean, a swing that you could have as few of manipulations as possible, was his words. And try to, because every swing is going to be a little different. We're human, but yeah, I mean, just the little subtleties like that are interesting to see. And then as far as him understanding the different centers, how to move the different centers to affect swing direction and ball flight, um, was earth breaking. So you've got the centers with him, the P system, the organization of the golf swing, how to look at a swing and compare. Driver swing, he calls CF, there to hit the ball high, or CP on more of short clubs to get the ball lower trajectories. So trying to hit the lofted clubs low and the less lofted clubs high, and kind of be the best of all things. So he used models like Sam Snead, Ben Hogan, Lee Trevino, Jack Nicklaus, and explained how all these guys usually had one thing they did really well, and then what did they do in their body to create that one thing, and then how could we, with our swings, change our centers to become the best at Lee Trevino's wedges, or the best at Jack Nicklaus's 1-irons, or flight a 7-iron like Hogan, so like just the different aspects of understanding angle of attack, swing direction, how it affects ball flight, and then through our bodies and arms and wrist and centers and sequencing, create that.
He was, I think, cutting edge. I think he's going to leave a legacy in the golf industry. I mean, if you weren't I don't know, he was a savant, or he was a loner, an isolator, whatever, right? He probably would have done a lot. He probably would have contributed a whole lot more, right? This concept of one thing I like and I take from Mac, this Leaning Tower of Pisa, or other guys call it the surf. You know what I mean? You have guys calling it recentering. Gravity Golf called it the counterfall. But I think that's really one of the most important concepts in golf for my swing, the way I see it. You know what I mean?
And, I think it got blown way out of proportion. So what you see, some people misinterpreted, whether it was stack and tilt or whatever. I think there was a whole group of people there after 2012 or 8 or 9 or 10 when stack and tilt came out with their books and DVDs that really took the left too much left. You got to figure Mac's starting way over his right foot. So when he recenters, he's just recentering in between his feet. He's not recentering over his left foot. So
right.
It's the recentering is from a right position to a centered position, not this way leaning left position that you can't do anything from but fall back.
I think it was a feel versus real thing. But, the concept of drifting back to center has helped me a lot with my compression, and it's nothing like it's almost something that's not taught. Well, now it's being.
And all of us, every single one of us that play golf, we start in forward flexion and address. I mean, there's no way around it. So if you turn in forward flexion, your head's going to go to the right. So we're all going to go, this lunge to the right if you turn in forward flexion. So what Mac did was he went ahead and started right. So his first part of the swing was really to set the wrists and the arms, and going in the backswing. And then the second part of the swing was more of the extension piece. So that's, again, getting back to my point I made a few minutes ago. He knew he wanted a certain look to his swing that he copied off the greats, and how to do it the most simplest way without disrupting the system. It was like shortcuts to sequence on how to get the power, but yet get the symmetry and to get the alignments the simplest way. So that's where he was a genius, was understanding what pieces and when they move and how they affect the body, and cut that out, and then do that proper sequence at the right time and place to get the results. So it's a recipe. It's a chocolate chip cookie recipe that's unbeatable that he came up with, because it produces the sexiest, fastest, repeatable golf swing out there on the market. I mean, you look at Robert Rock, Mac O'Grady swings, and you go, wow, how did those guys do what they do, make it look so clean and so repeatable? But yet, you got multiple examples on tour of guys that look like unfolding lawn chairs but yet they hit the ball really well. So obviously there's other ways. You don't have to look so pretty to hit the ball well if you got the premise of the sequence and motion. You don't have to look like Mac O'Grady to play well. I think Mac only won twice on the PGA Tour. So, and Robert Rock didn't win much more than that. So you're not talking about, a swing that's going to make you something special. You still have to be something special with a whole lot of other factors: putting, chipping, short game, course management, mental game. There's a whole other world. But as far as getting a swing you can wake up and make McDonald's cheeseburgers with the next morning and expect you're still going to hit it really solid on the range, it's definitely something that I think amateurs would be better served to look at, because then they have a swing that is not something they have to go hit 100 balls before they start finding the sweet spot with. Or take the front nine. It takes front nine. I get warmed up. I finally, and then you see the 44 38s on scorecards. You get
Exactly.
a swing that's, yeah. So it's worth the investment to dive into it and to get your golf IQ higher and understand these alignments better, so that you don't have this swing that is, all over the place. But yet, I hate the term, it's gotten popular in the last year, but what is it? Do your own swing, or swing your swing. Swing your swing is what I heard, because they'll use an example on somebody out there that's, may not look aesthetically pleasing on tour, and as an example. You look at Jim Furyk, for example. I mean, his alignments are unbelievable on the downswing. They're so pretty. What makes him kind of unique is that his arms push away and go up so much in the backswing, but his downswing is second to none. It's right on it. Now, just like him and Rahm both stand very close to the golf ball, so their arms get very close to their body near impact. Other than that, the alignments in the sequence are Hall of Fame, as good as Snead.
And I think you made a good point there. In that, I was talking to Andreas Cowley, and he talks about systematic teaching, or systemic teaching. I think is a better word. I like to say systematic, but systemic being, one thing leads to another, to another, to another. Yeah, and I think most amateurs, myself included, would be better suited to pursue that type of learning, where you can turn around and kind of diagnose, where you went wrong, or how you know what I mean, because you don't have your coach there all day long. You know what I mean? If you have something to guide you, and if you could,
Yeah.
draw back.
It's like this,
Good.
for example. I'd say early extension is the biggest fault in golf. Then I would say it leads to the biggest downswing fault. The biggest downswing fault in golf is people have to reach for the golf ball with their trail arm, because their right side, trail side of their body is so far away from the golf ball. So then you got those two real big problems: early extension, and then firing the trail side to try to reach for a golf ball. Well, when you fire the trail side, the right arm for righties, to get to the golf ball, you have a rapid closure rate. Your sweet spot radius is consistently lengthening. So you got turf problems, and then low point problems, and God knows swing direction problems. And that's 95% of everyone I've ever seen is their trail arm is gassed out trying to find a golf ball, because their right side of the body's not close enough to the ground and the golf ball. You go on the PGA Tour and watch YouTube, and you'll see every single one of those guys have the trail side of their body very close to the golf ball near impact and very low. And their trail arm is relaxed and not gassed out and firing. You can find examples of the opposite with Phil Mickelson, a little bit of Tiger at times, but I'd say 99% of the best elite golfers in the world have that right side of their body down and low with the soft arms, because they're pulling up on the club through the impact. I mean, I tell people, it's like a rock on the end of a rope. The rock is pulling out. What's pulling on the rope? The rock. The rope's pulling on the rock. Well, what's the rope? The shaft. So you're pulling on that shaft as much as that club head's pulling out on you. So you're actually pulling up on the club, which explains why, like, Nick Dunlap on the PGA Tour has this bent left elbow. They're pulling up on the club through the stripe to have that airplane land on that runway gently, that flat spot on the ground that produces a consistent low point through the stripe. And so if you're lengthening the trail side, if you're firing the right arm at the golf ball, it's because your body is jumping back or too far away from it, or you've early extended or stood up. So I'm getting to this point real quick. So if you have an amateur that understands posture being probably the most important thing to understand. If you put your back of your butt 4 to 5 inches behind your heels and keep it there. Now it's some part of your butt in the swing. So in the setup, it'll be the middle part of your butt. On the backswing, it's going to be your right butt cheek. As you come down, it'll be the middle part of your butt. And impact, it'll be your left butt cheek. So if you keep that back, then because we're all human beings in an athletic motion are seeking balance. You don't even know it, Ralph. You don't know it, but your body is keeping you in balance all the time. Your primary function as a animal is balance and not to fall. So if you're swinging at full speed and your butt is not 4 to 5 inches back behind your heels, your upper body will seek balance and it will stand up and come over your feet. So if you've got to keep the butt back to be able to keep the upper body down through the strike. So most people get in a TPI in that. Why can't people do that? Why can't people swing 110 miles an hour in that tilt? And you'll find a lot of reasons why. There'll be limitations or hamstring issues or back issues. It could be their feet and ankle and tendon issues. So you could, to be able to swing 110. And most amateur men that I work with, that's their goal. They would love to swing 110, 105 to 110 with driver because you can hit 300-yard drives that way with proper deep lane, angle of attack, and delivered loft. But, to swing that fast, you got to understand posture. So that's what I mean by, like you said, getting a structured approach. Understanding and getting your golf IQ higher so that you know what to look for in your swing when you film it. And most people don't film their swings enough. Even my students don't film their swings enough. But you got to maintain with film. And then if you do what the best players in the world do, Victor Hovland does not put his swing up next to Tiger Woods. Victor Hovland puts his swing up next to Victor Hovland. And he looks at Ralph looks at when he swung the best versus Ralph now, and he's not swinging good. And then say you have that golf IQ to know to put that yellow line behind your butt on your swing software. And then when you were swinging good, that's what you were working on, and you nailed it. And now you look at your swing today, and your butt is coming off that line 3 or 4 inches, and boom, you got a piece to the puzzle that you can put back in place, and hopefully to get back on track with. Now there may be other pieces that go with that, but that's just one example of what I mean by if people take a systematic approach to start having a checklist of things they look for in their swing.
Absolutely, John. I mean. Just listening to you, I got my net out here. I got a driving range over here. I live on a country club, so you know what it is. We're in an age now where there is information overload, right? And you can get yourself going down the wrong rabbit hole, right? There's buzzwords, there's hashtags, there's things that people know are going to generate interest, right? One of the big ones is shallowing, right? Shallowing, the golf club has been around since golf's been around, right? And somebody may have a novel or sexy approach to doing things, and it may get people to do things that, may or not work for them, right? So, to your point again, it's just systematic and you got to focus, like you say, don't put your swing. I'm not going to put my swing next to, Adam Scott. Adam Scott's Adam Scott. I'm 5'10". Yeah. I don't know if he's, but he's who he is, right? And so it stands to reason that, for example, Ben Hogan would be a great model. But would my swing look like Ben Hogan? Probably not. Ben Hogan had arms that almost reached his ankles. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. His belt was up here, but just below his rib cage. I'm not going to look like Ben Hogan, but can I get those dynamics? Like you said, Mac would try to find the best in each one of his models and how they went about it, and I think that's very, very important. And it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. With the shallowing thing, I mean, there's definitely different ways to swing the golf club. I mean, you're talking about some great golf instructors from Homer Kelly, swinging and hitting, Jim Hardy, 1 plane, 2 plane, Mike Adams, on top versus under. There's multiple ways to swing the golf club, and of those ways, there's branches of them. But how one person shallows is not how another person shallows. So you talk about laying the shaft back. That would be someone who's very body driven, like I'm talking about, bringing the right side of the body down to the ball, and the arms just kind of go for a free ride to some degree. Those guys typically have a little bit of a less pressure on the wrist, and then you got guys like Rory who are Justin Rose that are bringing or pull and Bryson DeChambeau that are more on top style golfers, and they don't drop the shaft back like that. Their focus is lowering the arms. They like to lower the arms with the chest closed. Well, that goes against bringing the right side of the body to the ball kind of style. If they're trying to keep the back to the target and lower the arms, and then you're looking at guys like Sam Snead and Jim Furyk that are bringing the right side of the body out to the golf ball, and their arms are more soft and absorbed up in the body. So you got these two totally different, big, distinct ways to swing the golf club. Both are screaming different things, and then the poor internet's giving these tips. And Ralph doesn't do that way. Ralph does this way, but he's taking tips from the wrong system of golf swing. So it's dangerous. That's why I say you got to get a really good instructor and probably invest in that person for a minute before you go around and listen to everybody, because at least know your source, and it's dangerous road, because golf is a fingerprint, but yet through the history of time, people are identifying there's different ways to get the job done, and you kind of got to fall into what way works best for you.
Absolutely. So, John, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, Ralph, I tell you, I always enjoy talking to you and seeing you, and I'm happy that you're in that beautiful country and enjoying yourself while it's frozen tundra up here in North America. I'm jealous of you. I'm happy that you're successful, and I'm glad you got this golf blog back. I think more people, can get to know these instructors that you bring on, and I think it makes us more relatable. I think probably 90% of every golfer, probably maybe more, it might be 98, has never taken a golf lesson before. Most people either try to figure it out themselves or just go have fun and do it. So the more you can get this out there and expose people to this type of stuff, it might make, someone more comfortable to give us a ring or to hit us up for some information and help them enjoy golf a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honored to call you a friend. You're a modest gentleman. You're good for the game. You're good for the game. And it's always a pleasure to listen to you speak and hear your thoughts on these things, because it can get quite complex, honestly.
Yeah, it can. It can. I always say, I go, all right, your golf swing, Ralph, our goal, we're going to have a goal with this, and maybe one or two goals, but we're going to base it off someone that does it for a living. So we're going to pick a model out there that shows they can strike that golf ball like that no one's ever seen before, a Hall of Famer, and it could be whatever pattern that Hall of Famer is we pick. That's going to be, who we're going to go after. And so we have a blueprint, we have a foundation of what we're looking for, and our goal is to try to get your body to look similar in whatever that goal may be. The early extension thing I mentioned, or the right side of the body, what I mentioned, and just stuff like that. If you keep it like that, if I always say this, if I had my son was dribbling the ball down the basketball court and he got the ball stolen every time, I would record Steph Curry on the TV. I would put my son dribbling on the ball next to him on a side-by-side screen, and I'd sit down with my son and I'd say, "What's different?" That'd be my first question. What's different? Steph's dribbling the ball a lot closer to the court, and you're dribbling it up by your chest. So so that would be the first thing I'd work on, is dribbling the ball lower to the court, or having my back to the defender. It could be pick anything. And if you take a systematic approach like that, and you have someone that has a good eye and a knack for doing it, and can communicate multiple different ways, hopefully, because not every way works for you, then you can make progress and get better. If you're that dad that's yelling in the back of the baseball field that get to stay in the box to your son, but yet your son is throwing the bat, and his hands are in the strike zone, and your son's smarter than you give him credit for, because your son knows his hands are going to hit that baseball coming at him. So he jumps back out of the batter's box And so that bat is on the strike zone. And that's why that kid's jumping out of the batter's box versus, filming them and being like, whoa, you're throwing those hands and arms way out into the strike zone. That's why you're jumping out of the batter's box. You take that approach, and I think you can find some success and take some of these kids that you might have deemed as unathletic, and you might actually get them to be athletic. And that's one of my biggest missions in life. If I could take the 3 or 4 kids at a gymnasium in PE class that think they're unathletic because someone told them they are, and I could get them to jump on a couple books and then teach them how to jump correctly with both feet, and then get that confidence on the proper fundamental movement screen, throwing, jumping, sidestepping, whatever it may be, and help those kids get that confidence to go out there and play at a level where they feel they're competitive. That would be my dream, to get to work with people like that. That's what I enjoy doing the most. Now
That's great.
that kid could be a 45-year-old man.
Well, it's as I get older, it just becomes more, I guess, more difficult. Your mind is telling you one thing, your body is definitely telling you something else. So
That's right. Yeah, the body. You and I want to stand up and we want to sit down. We don't want to bend over and swing at Mach 10. It doesn't feel good the next day or even during the round. So it is harder to stay in shape. I think a physical routine, like you said, if you can get into stretching and avoid injury somehow, and not swing too fast, just enjoy hitting it solid. And then I think you'll be okay for a while. And golf, you can golf. It's a great thing about our sport. You can golf. And actually, I always tell people this. I say I was a golf pro at a club for a lot of years, and the 90-year-old men in our community played golf 5 times a week. The old people were old because they got outside and moved, and they came out and golfed. And so it's a great sport in your retirement years to keep moving, to keep swinging, to keep turning. Because if you sit in a chair and you sit in your house, you're not going to last long. So
yeah, and it's designed to be a game of a lifetime. That's why it's important to get the proper, in my opinion, to get the proper mechanics and injury prevention. And it's McCadden likes to point that out, that when the ceremonial first tee shot at Augusta, right? You'd have Sarazen, Nelson, and Snead. Sarazen and Nelson couldn't get their hands above their waist. Sam Snead was finishing like he was still on tour.
Yeah.
He's 84 years old. It's a pleasure to watch.
It's stretching those hamstrings,
Right.
Stretch those hams. Those hams affect your back. People get back pain. They hear my back hurting. It's their hamstrings. You look at Sam Snead, he'd kick his foot up, on top of a golf cart roof. Not any of us could do that, but if you just get on the floor and put your butt up next to a wall and reach your hands occasionally, maybe every other day toward your toes, and stretch out those hamstrings. Those hamstrings in golf are a big deal. And then when they get tight, you're going to stand up. And when you stand up, all the stuff goes south. So, I'd say hamstrings, ankle, feet, hamstrings, calves, your legs, your butt, your glutes, your legs and the glute are boss, and your core. Work on your core, your hams, your glutes. It's not your back. Your back is a byproduct of one of those other things I mentioned. It's another problem with bad posture I see is if you got the people with the butt kicked out, their butts hiked up, and what they're doing is flexing the muscles around their lower spine, and their abs are actually relaxed. If you actually look like Arnold Palmer and Ben Hogan, slouched and curled like this, you're actually doing a crunch. Now the muscles in your core are engaged, and the muscles around your back are relaxed the way they should be. So you're not going to have a tight muscle gripping on a disc that could slip it. So you're better off not to get injured that way. So you look at the old person's posture like this, rounded spine. It's called posterior tilt. Anterior tilt's when you got that butt all kicked back like this. That puts stress on that lower part of the back. But there's people out there that's just the way they are naturally. Like they naturally just they're naturally just sort of bowed up like that. Davis Love the Third is like that. Davis Love the Third walks around with his chest bowed up in his
Yeah.
like this. Well,
Yes.
And Will Zalatoris, both those boys have fought back injuries their whole life because their lower spine is sitting there and it's flexed. It's flexed and tight. Now, if you curl and round like this, you're actually you're doing a crunch. Your core is engaged. That's why it's better, more healthy to actually round like that versus to do that. in golf. You don't want your muscles flexed around those discs.
And that's interesting because I have quite a bit of footage of the old timers, a lot of the 40s and 50s, and nobody was in that it's almost like a military address position. You know what I mean? It doesn't more inhibiting than it is helpful, I think.
It started somewhere. I don't want to say David Ledbetter. I can't remember. Around that time, the athlete, whenever it started going to, I hate to say David, athlete, and when it became more like it looked like someone doing a squat. Like when you do a squat, your arch like this. You know, it looked like they were like doing a squat, or I don't know. It's something happened with that.
Or a free throw.
Yeah. It's something happened where then there was a phase of that. The butt back felt like this, and it's just not right. It's not good. The swings I look at to this day. I mean, look at Victor Hovland's posture. That's a beautiful rounded spine, natural spine. He's going to last a while. You look at Will Zalatoris, not natural, butt kicked up, and he's already been on the IR. So, you look, it's interesting. The back's a big deal in our profession, maybe the biggest. The back may be the biggest. Now, if you ask me as a college golf coach, I'd say wrist. I got wrist issues on my team, men and women. So repetitive hitting off of AstroTurf is dangerous. And so wrist with all this AstroTurf, all these clubs are going to AstroTurf now, and the strips of turf, because they want to save the grass for the member guests. And just be careful. Too much hitting off that AstroTurf can get those wrist and elbows hurt.
Right.
You got to stay healthy. We got to keep you healthy because golf's hard enough.
Okay. Well, John, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we'll rendezvous again. I mean, this is good stuff.
When I figure out the secret, that's when we'll do that. We'll do that again. The secret's hard work. Work.
Yeah.
But anyways, right? Ralph, my friend, great to see you again. It was my eyes lit up when I got your message, and it brought back great memories to do this again with you. And I wish you the best of luck, and enjoy yourself down there in paradise.
Thank you, John. It's been
a
pleasure.
Brother. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.